So look at that. Look at that. So I guess YouTube's AI moderation bot is doing well. If you want that AI bot to flag some content and remove some content. If basically you want a bot that's going to go out there and remove content, YouTube's AI little algorithm seems to be doing well. If you actually want, an AI to flag and deal with content that should be dealt with, that is actually breaking the rules, well, yeah, YouTube's AI seems to be a bit of a miserable mess. So, yeah. So how you doing? How you doing? Oh me, I'm just doing what I'm doing. I'm down here. I'm down here in my basement. I'm sipping my cup of coffee, and I'm just kind of like, huh. I wonder what I'm going to do this morning. I wonder what I'm going to do this morning because you know what I'm not going to be doing this morning? I am not going to be creating news videos for the main Eli the Computer Guy channel because I got a real strike with real punishments because I dared to bring up the issue of capacity constraints within the medical establishment for first world countries. Yep, that is called medical misinformation. Because there's one of these things, right? So I see a lot of the viewers. I don't really want to say viewers, but there's a lot of trolls. There's a lot of trolls. There's a lot of nasty people on YouTube. And in the comment section, they like to spread a lot of stupidity. And so one of the big things, one of the stupidities that's going on, is basically the perspective of numbers, right? And as I've talked about before, whether something is expensive or cheap really depends on how much money you have in the bank account, right? $10,000 is a lot of money if you have no money in the bank account. $10,000 doesn't matter much if you have $1 billion in the bank account. It is the same amount of money, it's the same price, but based off of your perspective, it's an entirely different viewpoint. What I was talking about with capacity shortage is there's a lot of people now that say, what I love, one of the best parts is there's a 99% survival rate for COVID. Where if people actually did the math, they would realize how god awful that is. Like, thankfully, it is a better than 99% survival rate for COVID. But like, imagine that 1 out of 100 people dying from COVID. That would be like absolutely brutal. But anyways, there's a lot of people out there saying why we shouldn't take COVID seriously at all is because of how many people are actually getting sick from COVID. And one of the things I was bringing up is I did this video talking about the National Health Service and how COVID is breaking the National Health Service because they've only got so many ICU beds. So that's the thing, right? If only 500 people are seriously ill enough to go to the ICU, and you have 1,000 ICU beds, then yeah, then the ICU has more than enough capacity, right? If it has enough resources to deal with 1,000 people, and you put 500 people in an ICU, then you have more than enough capacity, right? Yeah, only. Why are we doing lockdowns? But if you have like 200 beds in your ICU or 250 beds in your ICU and resources for 250 people, and you have 500 people needing ICU services, that's 250 people. The door is not going to get open for. And that becomes really nasty really quick, right? And so in this video, talking about COVID breaking the NHS in the UK, basically I was talking about this with capacity constraints. Again, in the UK, they were showing in London. I mean, they have pictures of this in London where ambulances are just lined up going into a hospital where they're leaving patients in ambulances for 6 hours, actually starting treatment in the ambulances themselves because they don't have enough room in the hospitals. And so I did a video. I did a video talking about capacity constraints and the perspective of numbers. And again, why we should be taking COVID seriously. Now, again, to be clear, I'm a moderate here. I'm a what is it? I'm an extreme moderate. As a radical moderate. One of the things I do say is, again, we also cannot ignore the economy. We cannot ignore the economy. It's not that COVID is or is not important and the economy is or is not important. Both of these things matter. COVID we need to take seriously. We also need to take the economy seriously, right? Again, economy brings us gas and electric. The economy brings us insulin. The economy brings us all that PPE equipment that all these people need. The economy brings that, right? But one of the things I was trying to explain here is, again, with all of my stuff, it's all perspective. There's very few right and wrong answers in the world. It's all this shade of gray thing. And then one of the things I talked about is one of the things that I'm frustrated about with the Trump administration and really with the entire Western world is that oh, when you think that at the beginning of this decade we have the Ebola outbreak in Africa, where everybody was really scared of it. But the good part about the Ebola outbreak in Africa is that it wasn't that contagious. It was nasty as hell. It was brutal as fuck. But really, the only reason it got to be as bad as it did in Africa is they've got some curious habits over there. Like it could have been dealt with a little quicker, but they have ways of doing things. I'm not trying to be snarky, but right, they have ways of doing. Kind of like here in the U.S., where some people just refuse to wear masks. They believe that is now a political issue. In Africa, you know, anywho. But the thing to understand though is that was really nasty. That was really horrible. That killed a lot of people, and thankfully, it wasn't contagious enough to actually become a pandemic, right? We had Zika. Zika was just 5 years ago, 4, 5, 6 years ago, somewhere like that. Again, the new mosquito carrying virus caused a lot of damage in South America, Central America, probably still doing it all the way into Miami. This actually got into the United States. And I had friends of mine that were thinking about, having kids at that time, and they started having to make real decisions based off of the Zika virus. And so when you had Ebola, and then you've had Zika, now that you have the coronavirus, one of my frustrations is it doesn't seem like the United States, or really much of the first world countries, are really building some kind of strategic response for pandemics going into the future, right? Because, again, this is what we've had in the last 10 years. And so the question that should be asked is, what happens if Ebola goes airborne? And one of the things, again, I would say with the Trump administration and where we are at this point is put the masks and all of that to the side. Ask yourself, after a year of knowing about coronavirus and the whole 9 yards, how are we more prepared now for an airborne version of Ebola than we were a year ago? Can you honestly say that, woo, thank golly, this COVID thing has been nasty. It's destroyed our economy. It's made people sick, the whole 9 yards. But at least what we know is because now that we have gone through this, we have built up the resource capacity to deal with airborne Ebola going into the future, right? We have built extra hospital capacity. We have spun up. We have trained up, nurses and PAs and EMTs and all that types of things, right? And one of the things I've talked about is I don't understand when you really look at the dangers to Western civilization at this point in time. Disease is far more dangerous to Western civilization than Russia is. I mean, let's be honest. Russia wishes they were as scary as COVID, right? Russia couldn't compete with COVID if you freaking kneecapped COVID, right? COVID is just freaking, again, and think about something that's actually worse, like an airborne Ebola. And so one of the things I brought up in that particular video is why don't we have a strategic medical command? We have National Guard, we have Air National Guard, we have Army Reserve, Navy Reserve, Marine Reserve, Air Force Reserve. We have all of these reserve type units. And so one of my big questions in this is when we're looking at what's happening, why don't we have a strategic medical command? Why don't we have a National Guard type system where we bring people and bring motivated people in, we train them to whatever level for medical work in the real world. We train them to that level. They're required to give us 1 weekend a month and 2 weeks a year, and they get some college credit or whatever else when they leave. Right? Again, if we can spend $800 billion to defend ourselves against frickin' Russia or China, why can't we have a strategic medical command that would cost a fraction of that and that could actually be useful day in and day out? That's the thing. Like an infantry soldier, God bless the infantry. God bless the infantry. But let's face it, unless it's World War III, there's not a lot you can do with an infantry soldier, right? Think about this. So again, one weekend a month and 2 weeks a year for an infantry soldier. Okay, they're gonna dig some ditches. They're gonna go and they're gonna make sure they can shoot straight the whole 9 yards. If you actually had a medical command, I mean, imagine if you had one weekend a month where you could send people, your medical staff somewhere in a state where people actually need support services, vaccinations, maybe dental work, that type of thing, right? So one weekend a month. Okay, we are going to go to this area of the state and we are going to provide vaccination services for whoever the fuck wants it. I'm not saying you have to eat there, but like, hey, we're gonna put people here to make sure they can get vaccination services. Okay, we're gonna put people here, right? And then you do the two weeks out of the year, and that's where you could send people to Appalachia. You could send people to Mississippi. You could send people to the frickin' Ozarks. Maybe you could send people over to Egypt or whatever. Instead of sending Egypt $1 billion a year, say, hey, we'll send you support services for your medical establishment. All right, so that's what I was arguing, is that if you look at this, COVID is essentially how the systems that we have created for our medical establishment. COVID is freaking decimating. Not only is COVID decimating the systems that we've created, they're unable to keep up, but we do not appear to really be building robust systems for this in the future. Even if you think of COVID too. Again, let's not even go to airborne Ebola. Let's not go there to airborne Ebola. Let's just say if COVID 2 comes down the pike, right? Let's say there's a new mutation of COVID where the vaccine doesn't take care of it. And so we're literally back at square one. Do you feel 1 year on from COVID-19 that if we got COVID 20, do you feel that our systems are robust enough to deal with COVID 20 any better than they dealt with COVID 19? And I would argue no. And again, that's one of my frustrations with the whole Trump administration is just, right? And that's what this video is about. I did this video. And again, talking about COVID breaking NHS in the UK and why this matters. And that was auto-flagged. That was auto-flagged as medical misinformation. And then I appealed, and it was manually reviewed by the most retarded fucking monkey they could find. And I do mean a monkey. I mean an actual banana fucking eating monkey. And apparently... No, that is medical misinformation. It is medical misinformation as a U.S. citizen to question why we do not have a strategic medical command. We have a Space Force. We have a fucking Space Force. Don't get me wrong. I'm not anti-Space Force. I think Space Force is actually a relatively okay idea, depending on how it goes, right? But we have a Space Force. We have fucking Space Force, and we don't have a strategic medical command. We are going to have protections from the aliens that we don't know whether or not they exist, as our entire population gets wiped out by fucking airborne Ebola. Anyways, but questioning why we have a space command and why we don't have a strategic medical command, that is medical misinformation. To say that what's going on in the UK right now, where they have ambulances lined up and patients are literally being treated in the ambulances because they don't have enough space in the hospital, that is medical misinformation. And so I have a community strike, a real community strike on my channel now. And so with that real community strike, I can't upload anything. I can't upload or use my community tab. That's great. Not only do they punish you, but they silence you when they punish you. So I can't upload anything, and I couldn't put anything on my community tab for a week. So I've got 7 days of that punishment. And then if something like this happens 2 more times, then my 1 million subscriber channel will get kicked off of YouTube. The reason that I'm concerned about this, the reason I'm really concerned about this is my second community strike in 2 months, right? So this I just got in January. And in November, I got a community strike because I did a video. I did a video talking about why social media platforms trying to ban the word hollow hoax will not work. And basically, I was explaining, so they're using all of these keyword filters nowadays. Again, these retarded monkeys with keyword filters in order to try to block content. The problem that I was saying there is if you try to block the word hollow hoax, the people that actually want that are actually pushing the word hollow hoax are just going to find a new name, right? When you have a bunch of assholes on 4chan and 8chan and Reddit or whatever else, they're going to use whatever name gets through the system. So originally they said Holocaust denial. Then when Holocaust denial started getting banned, then they're going to start saying hollow hoax. And then when hollow hoax gets banned, then they're going to just start saying banana, right? They're all on the same fucking page. They know what the fuck they're talking about. They don't really care if they say Holocaust denial or banana. And frankly, talking about banana denial might actually be a hell of a lot more hilarious to these bastards than talking about Holocaust denial. But I did this video talking about, since my name is Eli, again, people think that I'm Jewish. I'm not. I'm a fake Jew. I was talking about all the anti-Semitic hate that I get and how it really is a pain in the ass and it really does suck. But even with all of that, I was saying trying to ban, a Holocaust denial or the hollow hoax or anything else, this isn't going to work on these platforms because wait for it, wait for it. Because I said the people that are actually trying to push this mentality really don't give a shit about the words that they are using. They don't care about their accounts, right? They don't have a vested interest in their accounts because they know their accounts are most likely going to get terminated. They don't have a vested interest in the actual words because it's almost funnier to use new words, right? They don't have a vested interest in any of this stuff. So if you start using keyword filters in order to start banning people and giving community strikes, what's going to happen is you're going to start hitting the people that are discussing the issues, and they don't know that people are now talking about banana instead of hollow hoax. And so basically the people that are actually arguing against whatever it is we're talking about are most likely the ones that are going to get hit. And that was literally what I talked about when I said basically trying to ban the word hollow hoax isn't going to work. And I got a community strike for that. That was my first community strike. To teach me a lesson. Eli, I hope you know. I hope you learned your lesson. Eli, I hope YouTube taught you your lesson. It's like, what? You have a bunch of fucking psychotic, retarded monkeys running your AI? No, I already fucking understood that one, buckos. You didn't have to hammer that one home. So that was my first. So that was a community strike. That was an actual community strike, but because it was my first one, I didn't get a punishment. And so this is my second one. This is my second community strike in 2 months. And I've only got 2 more. If I get another community strike, I can't upload anything for 2 weeks. And if I get the third community strike, my channel is gone. And the worst part about this is this is an F-Linus. This isn't like one of those things where you could say like, oh, Eli, you crossed the line. When you said F-Linus, that went into the line of bullying. There's not, like with these particular videos, there's nothing about these videos that should be controversial. There's nothing about these videos that should be controversial. These are just videos talking about the world as it is. And again, especially important, I think, as a business person to be talking about the COVID issues, because like this has real world connotations to a lot of business people. So like with me, right? So my wife and I, we're selling our house. We have a contract on our house. We're going to Appalachia. We're buying a house in Appalachia. Hopefully that'll be soon. Hopefully we'll be buying a house before the movers drop off our crap. That's nerve-wracking. We literally have the movers coming to pick up our stuff at a certain date, and we actually don't know where they're taking the stuff yet. And it's not that much longer. So hopefully pretty soon we're gonna find out where it's going. But anyway, so we're going to Appalachia. One of the things I've talked about for years and years, and I think I can finally make it to the point that I'm interested in doing it in Appalachia, is this whole idea of Silicon Dojo. So with Silicon Dojo, the concept is teaching technology the way martial arts is taught. So basically being very much learn at your own speed. You can finish the entire program in a year, or you can take 9 years. Doesn't fucking matter to me. You go at your own speed. Collaborative education, where it's not just the student and the teacher, but you have people of different levels. So one student can ask another student, right? So again, like when I was doing Kempo or whatever, if you have a yellow belt and a yellow belt doesn't understand how a block works or something, the yellow belt can simply go over to the brown belt and say, hey, brown belt. I'm trying to get this thing done. I don't understand what I'm doing wrong. And it's like, I'm trying to do this, but this feels bad on my wrist. And the brown belt can go, oh no, so this is good. Keep that tight. But when you hit anywhere above here, basically it actually goes straight out. It's not like that hit like you see in the movies like this. You actually pop them that way. Right? And so you can do collaborative education. And the nice thing about collaborative education is, one, it's a hell of a lot easier to scale than normal like college education, because now everybody's teaching each other. So you have one teacher to keep track and make sure nobody's beating the shit knows when to pull off the students if they do something really asinine, at least in martial arts. But then, like, all the students are teaching each other, and that allows students to get comfortable asking other students for help, asking for help. And then the other thing, too, is it allows the people that are a little higher up to actually really start understanding what they're doing. Like, I can't tell you how many times when something I've been practicing for years when I was doing Kempo. I've been practicing and practicing and practicing, and it wasn't until like some little fucking, green belt comes up to me and they're like, yeah, so when you move in for this particular whatever, how do you check the leg? And again, like a lot of times you practice with your buddy, or a lot of times you practice in the air. So checking the leg is basically where you try to jam up the opponent. So the idea is like your leg slides in to block their leg, so that when you're just busting their ass, they don't kick you in the nuts. Getting kicked in the nuts is a great equalizer, right? So like when you move in, one of the things you do is it's this whole body maneuver where you're blocking, you're hitting, but as you're hitting, your leg slides in and slams up, basically it jams up against their leg, so that they can't kick you in the nuts. And so like that was one, like I remember that where, I've been doing this basically for a long time, and there was that certain point where I was explaining something to a lower belt, and I was doing it, and then like my leg just clicked in that perfect place when I was demoing it to the student, and I was like, oh hell, that's how that works. I mean, I know what I was sort of checking. There's a difference between moving your leg in the direction it's supposed to go in a pretty fashion and actually checking the other guy's leg. And it was like, that was like, right. And so that's one of the things I want, like that collaborative education thing. But anyways, this is an in-person deal. Silicon Dojo. So one of the things that I'm looking at when I go, I know I have the ability to do it. I know I have the money to launch the idea. I'm pretty sure that there's interest there. Again, going for fun, like with the Arduino and the IoT, focus on making this fun, making this interesting, the whole 9 yards. But there's a whole big question about how do you deal with a physical environment, a physical business in the modern world. Again, and how does this work out? So where we're going, you can have like 10 people in a room. And so think about this. If I can have 10 people in a room, that's 9 people and myself, right? Well, and why that matters is like when I go there, do I want to rent in 1,000 square foot space, or do I want to rent a 500 square foot space? Because if people have to be social distance, so 6 feet apart, and you actually start doing the math on what this starts to look like, essentially a 500 foot facility, facility, you make it sound good. That's startup life. In our 500 foot facility. Anyways, in a 500 foot room, you can have 10 people in that room. They can be pretty well socially distanced. And you're fine. In a 1,000 square foot room, you could have like 20, I've done the math, like 20 plus people in a 1,000 square foot room. But think about this, right? Every square foot costs money. A 500 square foot room is going to cost this amount of money, and a 1,000 square foot room is going to cost this amount of money. So if I can only have 10 people in a room regardless, I can't have 20 people in a room. Why do I want to pay rent for 1,000 square feet? Why do I want to pay rent for 1,000 square feet if I can only really use 500 square feet of it? That's the kind of thing you need to be thinking about in the business environment with COVID. And then why I talk about COVID and these issues is because like when Fauci lied, right? So Fauci has come out and basically stated that he lied, where he was saying that we needed we needed like 70% of the population. So 70% of the population needed to have the vaccination before we had herd immunity and we could go back to normal, right? He was lying. He was saying this and saying this and saying this, and that was what got pushed into all of our heads. And so feel about that however you feel about that, right? As a business person, you got to make your bet. How long do you think it'll take for 70% of the population to get vaccinated? You look at the world and then you make your bet. Because in the real world, business is bets. Business is bets, life is bets, career is bets. You take the best information you can get and you figure that out. Well, Jackass comes out and says no, it's probably about 90% of the population needs to get inoculated in order to have herd immunity. Well, again, tee-hee. Oh, tee-hee, isn't he cute? Isn't he cute? Well, the thing is, there's real numbers going on there. There's real numbers, right? 330 million people in the United States, 10% of 330 million people is 33 million people, right? So if you go from 70% of the population need to be inoculated, 90% of the population being inoculated, that's 66 million more people that need to get inoculated before we get to herd immunity and we go back to normal. Right? And so if you're sitting there and you're doing your math and you say, okay, well, I think 70% of the population, I think to get 70%, some people will think, okay, that can probably be done in June. And some people are going to make the bet that it'll be done in August. But they're making that bet off of numbers that they've been told by the scientists, by Fauci. Fauci comes out and says another 20% of the people need to be vaccinated. Another 66 million people need to be vaccinated. You do different math on that. It takes time to get shots into people's arms. Like even right now, right, with the COVID vaccine, Trump was saying that he wanted to get 20 million people vaccinated by the end of December. That didn't happen. 4 million people got vaccinated by the end of December. Now again, this is perspective. 4 million people vaccinated by the end of December isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? That's 4 million people that have gotten vaccinated that weren't vaccinated before. But in relation to being told you'll get 20 million people vaccinated by the end of December, that means you only vaccinated a fifth of the people that you said were going to get vaccinated. And so it doesn't really look good. Like when we were talking before about 70% of the people being vaccinated by like June or July, and now we've only vaccinated a fifth of the people that were supposed to get vaccinated by this point. Do you even think 70% of the people get vaccinated by June or July? Not to mention if we need to get to 90%, what that will push us to. And so one of the important reasons why I talk about this shit with COVID, why I talk about Fauci lying, when I talk about the NHS system breaking, when I talk about these things, is this is very irrelevant for a business person. Are you going to rent a 500 square foot space? Are you going to rent a 1,000 square foot space? Are you going to rent a 2,000 square foot space? Let's say you have a lot of money. You have the money to rent a 2,000 square foot space, but again, the place that you're going is under phase 2 and most likely will stay under phase 2 for the next year. Why do you want to be throwing money down a toilet for an amount of room you literally can't use? Even if you could advertise so well you could get 100 people into that room, you can't get 100 people into that room because it would be illegal, right? This is why I talk about these issues with COVID and why I talk about Fauci lying and I talk about Trump being a jackass. Why I talk about, because this kind of thing matters. Again, when we talk about New York, it's very important. When you have a place where rent, apartment rent is $3,000 a month. If you want to rent, like, I don't know, at 1,500 square feet, it's going to cost you $12,000 a month. Think about that. Again, like with Lewis. Lewis seems to be doing well. But again, if you're thinking about doing a business in this modern world, let's say you were thinking about doing your version of Silicon Dojo or something like that, right? So you're thinking about, okay, I'm going to rent space. Do you want to do that in a place that it costs $12,000 a month for 1,500 square feet? Or do you want to do that in a space where you can get 1,500 square feet for $1,000 a month? Whether your business is going to be designed around remote work or in-person work, right? The stuff that's going on with COVID, that matters. That matters for business people. And so that's why I talk about this. And that's why it's so frustrating to see YouTube's retarded fucking monkeys now basically label like COVID breaking, NHS in the UK as misinformation, because it's absolutely not misinformation. And it's things that we need to be thinking about. Because again, it's not just about today. It's not about today. We had Ebola, we had Zika, now we have COVID. What happens when COVID-20 comes down the pike? What happens for your business? And that's the important thing, right? Fool me twice, shame on you. Or fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on a puppy dog, right? No. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me, right? The idea being that if you've never seen a problem before, if you're young and you're naive and you've never seen a problem before, then it's understandable that when that problem crops up, you may not know what to do. Right? But when you've seen it the second and the third and the fourth time, that you should have a plan of action based off of that. So again, talking about COVID breaking the NHS, talking about our lack of a strategic medical command, what is really important here is not simply about what COVID is currently doing to your business or your career or anything else, but asking yourself in 5 years, how is your organization or how is your career, how is all of this going to be set up so that when COVID-20 comes down the pike, that you're like, oh, okay, we dealt with COVID back in 2020. It was a pain in the ass, but we've got this under control. right? If we started getting these shutdowns again, if we go back to normal, let's say 2021 we actually get back to normal. So let's say 2022 we actually get back to normal. What happens if we get back to normal? People are going into businesses, people are going to restaurants, everything's back on the up curve. What happens to your business in 2026 if COVID-20 comes down the pike? If COVID-20 comes down to the pike, do you simply shrug your shoulders, sigh, and basically do some predictions on the calendar to figure out how long it'll be, or are you going to be in the exact same position you were in this year? That's why talking about this stuff matters, and that's why it's so frustrating when YouTube gives me a community strike for trying to be honest about all this bullshit. And so, yes, this is the world that we're in. This is the YouTube world that we're in. Again, with all these social media platforms that want to take over modern communication, but then their moderation systems aren't worth a shit. And it's scary to think about. It's like so much, it's like, oh, right wing or left wing. I mean, think about the things that I talk about. Think about the things that I talk about. I'm trying to talk about systems here. I'm trying to talk about systems here. Again, I know I might be an asshole. Yes, I'm an asshole. Yes, I'm a jackass. Yes, I'm snarky. Yes, I swear too much. Fine, whatever. But think about what I'm trying to explain to people here. I'm trying to explain to people how you look at situations, try to understand everything that is occurring, and then come up with actionable plans based off of that. That's what I'm talking about here. Again, thinking about rules. When you're going to create rules, are your rules going to end up punishing the people that have the most vested interest in your product or service? Right? That's right. These are the things that I'm talking about. And this is what YouTube is literally punishing me on. And you think about that in the modern form of communication and what the hell happens in that kind of world. So that's the thing. Like there are so many videos on YouTube right now that are just, oh my golly, as far as COVID is concerned, just freaking insane videos about COVID. Those are getting 1 million views. Talking about needing a strategic medical command in the United States, that gets medical misinformation. So when Susan W goes, oh, I can't believe there's hate speech on YouTube. Remember, she's promoting hate speech. That's what I really want you to understand here. The real takeaway here is YouTube's systems are specifically built to amplify hate speech. Not only are they built to amplify hate speech, but apparently they are built to destroy the sensible moderates out there trying to explain the situation so that people can actually make some reasonable decisions. That's where we're at. So yeah, community strike. What does this mean for me? Well, I'm off of the main YouTube channel for a week. There will be no news for a week. Again, not sure what I'm gonna do this morning. Guess I'm gonna plug along with my little Raspberry Pi projects. So I'm gonna plug around my Raspberry Pi projects for the rest of the week. Then going into next week. Again, can I be a moderate here? Can I be honest with you? I don't know. Maybe I'll stay in more tech-centric world, complaining about Intel. I haven't gotten a community strike yet for saying that Intel will die. Talking about the death of IT or the death of Intel, that seems a-okay. What I might do going into the future is talk about these subjects that YouTube's AI probably can't make heads or tails over, or at least as far as the titles are concerned. Because my issue here is, again, with Silicon Dojo, right? I have this YouTube channel. So that YouTube channel has over 1 million subscribers. And brings in good revenue. It brings in enough revenue to fund Silicon Dojo quite well. Again, I could actually hire a couple of employees off of what I make off of YouTube if I wanted to. So my thought is, once I get my channel back from this bullshit strike, then maybe I really will just talk about the tech stuff. So that way, hopefully I don't get strikes. Hopefully I don't get any community strikes for talking about that. I keep that presence. I keep that 1 million subscriber value for whatever it's worth. Plus I can advertise, again, if I'm talking about this stuff, and I can advertise Silicon Dojo while I do it, and go from there. I think, and this is the important thing too, to understand how AI manipulates human communication. Do I think that COVID is an incredibly important subject to talk about? Yes. Do I think that harassment and bullying and all that on social media is an incredibly valuable topic to talk about, especially as a moderate? Yes. I want you to understand, because of YouTube's I am being forced to myself make the decision to stop talking about those subjects. Because at any time I can be punished. At any time I can have my channel ripped away. I can have my revenue ripped away. I can have this asset that I've taken 10 and a half years to build. I can have all of that ripped away because of YouTube's retarded AI monkeys, right? And so that's where then what people talk about, they now make the decision, again, reasonable decisions on what they will or will not say. Do I think COVID is important? Yes. Would I prefer to keep making content about COVID because it is significant? And when I'm sitting there thinking about building Silicon Dojo, literally just yesterday, I was on the state that I'm going to's website looking at their phases and what all those phases mean and all that kind of stuff. COVID is incredibly important from a business person's perspective. But, am I willing to risk this asset that I've taken 10 and a half years to build, that has given me enough money that I can just fucking pay for Silicon Dojo and not think about it? Am I willing to risk that asset to talk about a specific subject? At the end of the day, I think probably the answer is no. Because, yeah, because I'm an extreme moderate. It's like, well, what do I think is really important? Honestly, what I think is really important is probably Silicon Dojo. So if I can use this asset to push to that asset, I think that is probably the better way to go. And so this is how YouTube's AI destroys modern communication. This is how they destroy the modern communication. They convince you. They convince you to shut your mouth. They didn't force you to stop talking. They convinced you. They convinced you to stop talking. And that's why it's so insidious. And that's why these platforms, they need to have massive amount of regulation gone after them. Again, the amount of control that they have at this point, and how they're obviously using that control is absurd. Like again, like I say with this community strike, I've been on YouTube for 10 and a half years. I have made both YouTube and I a decent chunk of money. Again, one of the reasons I'm still on YouTube is I make a surprising amount of money off of YouTube. It's like, oh, well, fuck it. I mean, it's worth my time. It's worth my time to be on YouTube. And so to be on for 10 and a half years, to have over 1 million subscribers, to be bringing in money now, and that they can't even do basic moderation, just really shows you just how, again, how corrupt the system is, how cancerous the system is. The fact that the entire system is malignant from the inside out. And so I'm not one of those people that prefers government regulation by any stretch of the imagination. But, you think about that. If they now say 70% of the American population goes to YouTube for news, think about this for a second. 70% of the population goes to YouTube for news. And then you think folks like me, moderates, that are simply trying to say that yes, COVID matters, but the economy matters too. The economy is what gets you PPE, you jackasses, right? People like me, if we're now being attacked by the YouTube system, then what kind of content is really going to be put out there? So, anywho, that's it. I'm going to go. I'm going to finish my coffee. I'm gonna work on a little Python. Gonna work on a little Raspberry Pi. It's really cool. I have a Pi Zero coming in. So Pi Zero W. There's a Raspberry Pi Zero that's like this. It's even so the Raspberry Pi's over there. It's even smaller than our Arduino. It's this tiny little thing. So I have one of those coming in. I'm probably gonna use that to try to create a remote control car. So I don't know. I might still do some of the live videos here as I'm doing my little projects. I don't know. I gotta be careful though. Gotta be careful what I say. Because that American company. Trying to silence people. Trying to silence moderates. Anyways, I don't know, boys and girls. It's just It's dumbfounding how just malignant these companies are. And the important thing for any young people out there is to understand that these malignant companies aren't technology, right? YouTube isn't technology. Facebook isn't technology. Twitter isn't technology. I mean, they're built off of technology. They're technology platforms. But I think the important thing to understand is just how malignant and diseased these things are, and how this isn't what technology has to be, right? We all thought, I thought it was going to be RSS 3.0 and SMTP 3.0 and RTMP 3.0 and the whole nine yards. I thought back in the day when it was platforms, the idea was it's a hell of a lot more efficient to have consolidated platforms. And so they consolidate the platforms, they put some ads against our the content that we create, everybody's happy. And what's and it's just amazing to see just how diseased these people are. I mean, they're just, is it mad cow? Are they all drinking lead pipes? Is that the new thing? I don't know. Maybe that's it, right? They say like real water. What is it like, or raw water? Have you seen this raw water shit? There's like this raw water thing that's supposed to be really popular in California now, where they just go and they like literally just get water out of streams, and that's raw water. Hey, jackasses, jackasses. There's a reason Appalachians like real water. Anyways, maybe it's a real water thing. Maybe they just got these like microbes. Maybe all the CEOs for these tech companies, they got into the raw water thing and they have this little microbe that's just eating their brains out because it's just insane. It's insane to see how they're moderating dealing with their platforms at this point. Anyhow, I'm done. I'm done. I'll see y'all. I'll see y'all when I see y'all. See y'all when I see y'all.